Welcome back to my channel, Hidden Points. Today, we open the curtain on the mind of the performer, the person who seems larger than life, louder than the room, and impossible to ignore. Yet behind the spotlight hides a heart that often trembles, and a past that shaped them into someone who needs to be seen, to feel real, to feel safe, to feel worthy. The performer isn't just someone who entertains. They are someone who survives through attention, applause, and validation. We begin with a hook that pulls you inside their world, because the performer is not confident in the way you imagine. Sometimes the person who shines the brightest is the one most afraid of disappearing. Imagine a boy named Adam. He learned early that the only way to stop his fighting parents was to make them laugh, to pull their attention onto him and distract them from each other. Every time he succeeded, he felt a rush in his chest, a sense of power. He learned that his voice and his humor could change the room. So, growing up, he became the clown, the entertainer, the talker. People thought he loved the spotlight, but the truth was, he feared silence, because silence meant no one needed him and no one cared. Now, imagine a teenage girl named Hind. She grew up shy and invisible at home. Every time she tried to share her thoughts, she was interrupted and ignored. She felt like a ghost, until one day, she performed a poem in her classroom. Everyone suddenly turned toward her, gasped, and clapped. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. That moment planted a seed, and she began to chase that feeling again and again. The world called her talented, but deep inside, she was terrified of going back to being invisible. And then, imagine a young man named Elias. He takes over every room with dramatic stories, bold movements, and endless energy. People admire his confidence, yet his mind races with the fear that others will forget him if he doesn't constantly impress them. He lives in a loop of performance because he believes his natural self is not enough. When we study these examples, we begin to uncover the core psychology of the performer, which is built on yearning, survival, and deep emotional wiring. Psychologists explain that performers often develop something called externalized self-worth. This means their sense of value isn't built inside themselves. Instead, it rises and falls based on how others react to them. Applause becomes fuel, silence becomes fear, attention becomes oxygen, and disapproval becomes pain. Neuroscientists studying social reward circuits have found that performers often have heightened responses in the brain's reward system when they receive attention. Their nervous system learned early that attention equals safety. Without it, their stress response increases, and their thoughts spiral into insecurity. This is why performers can't tolerate emotional distance. They interpret it as danger. They often exaggerate their personality to protect themselves from feeling abandoned. Another layer of their psychology is something called identity diffusion. This means they shape themselves to fit what others want, because performing becomes a way to avoid rejection. The performer adapts, changes, and exaggerates until the audience approves. The tragic part is that they often lose any sense of who they truly are. Many performers fear authenticity because authenticity feels risky and vulnerable, while performing feels controlled, safe, and familiar. Research in developmental psychology shows that many performers were parentified or emotionally neglected children. They learned to earn love rather than receive it freely. This creates a psychological pattern where they believe, "I must entertain to deserve connection." This belief drives them into adulthood, where they become charismatic, magnetic, expressive, and admired. And yet, behind the light sits a child who still fears being unseen. This is why performers often struggle with burnout. Maintaining a persona drains their emotional energy. They carry the pressure to be interesting, impressive, and exciting, even when they feel empty inside. They worry that if they stop performing, people will lose interest and walk away. This creates a loop where the performer is never truly resting, never truly calm. Their nervous system is always calculating the room, the reactions, the shifts in mood, the micro-expressions that might tell them whether they are still valued. This turns the performer into both a master of attention and a prisoner of it. And yet, the performer also carries beauty. Their ability to feel deeply gives them creativity. Their sensitivity allows them to connect with others. Their emotional intensity becomes art, their passion becomes inspiration, and their presence becomes powerful. When they finally learn to build inner worth instead of chasing outer validation, they transform into something remarkable. They begin to perform from expression, not fear, from passion, not insecurity, from authenticity, not survival. The performer becomes a true artist when they no longer need applause to exist, when they finally understand that they are enough even when the room is quiet, the curtain is down, and the spotlight is off. Thanks for watching. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing for more insights.